That's it. That's it.
This is the gate to the Concord Municipal Airport. It's 9 feet tall, covered in barbed wire, and pretty daunting to look at. As when I was little, this was the most exciting part of my day. I would look at it, waiting for it to slowly open, willing it to go just a little bit faster. Those few seconds were the longest times of my life. Now, a little bit older, a little more patient, those few seconds still feel like the longest times of my life, but that's okay. I at least now know that while I'm waiting there, watching it slowly creak open so I can get to the planes, I have something special. I can get in that gate. Most kids don't ever get past that gate. Hi, my name is Emily Vincent, and over the past semester, I spent over 35 hours researching ways to increase accessibility in aviation. As you may have guessed, I grew up completely immersed in the world of aviation. From a young age, I was flying with my parents, spending countless hours in airports just like Concord. I was constantly coming up to pilots or air traffic controllers or anything at the airport and just asking them, how'd you do it? Or just hanging out because I was a kid at an airport and I was bored and they were there. I always saw this world as an open world of possibilities. I never doubted for a second that I could learn to fly. But being around this community is what did that. I was able to see it day in and day out, all of the opportunities that were out there. Seeing is believing, and I always got to see. But I am an anomaly. Most kids don't ever get to see that. There is that gate, there is a lot of barriers, there's things that people believe about pilots or aviation that is just simply not true. So how do we get those kids to see what can be open? How do we increase accessibility in aviation? Over the course of this semester, I sought to answer that question through both my research and also by earning my basic ground instructor rating and by helping coordinate and volunteering at a Young Eagles Day at Concord. When I started, I had a pretty clear answer to my question. I thought I knew it. I thought it was going to be easy. Flying is expensive. It costs a lot of money. When I was starting out, it was $103 an hour for that plane, and plus $65 for an instructor, which Kevin is 100% worth it, but the plane, maybe not so much. By the end, when I was ready to take my license test, it was $150 an hour because of fuel prices. Now, this is the same plane that my dad learned to fly in the 80s. It has not changed. I don't think they've even given it a new paint job. So $150 an hour, that's a big step. However, when I started researching for this project, I realized that this is just one piece of the puzzle. Money is a problem. Aviation is expensive. But there's a lot of steps between a kid looking up at a plane flying over and a kid having to write that check. There's a lot of things in between them, and that's just a small piece. According to the Federal Aviation Administration Guide for Flight Instructors, there are 4 steps to a proper flight lesson. It is preparation, presentation, application, and review. So if we apply this to people getting involved in aviation, and assuming the end of the lesson is that they are now an active member of the community, where are we losing people? There's a lot of prepared kids. Kids who want to fly or look up every time they hear a plane, or kids who went to see Top Gun and thought it was the coolest thing ever. I see you all. It was a great movie. There's a lot of pilots applying their knowledge, flying for work or for fun or just talking about planes. And there's a lot of review within the community itself. Air shows, fly-ins, just people hanging out at the airport talking about old war stories and that time they almost hit a tree but didn't, and it's all fine. So clearly that's not the problem. The problem is the second step, presentation. There's a disconnect there. Those people, those kids who are prepared, are not seeing the pilots who are applying. They're not part of the review. So how can we fix that? Seeing is believing, but if there's a 9-foot fence in your way, how are you ever going to think you can learn to fly? the aviation industry has 11.3 million direct jobs worldwide. In the US alone, there's 159,000 active air transport pilots, so airline pilots, cargo pilots. There's 11,500 air traffic controllers and 135,000 airframe and power plant, so mechanics. That's a lot of people that are employed by the aviation industry, and those are just 3 types of jobs. To meet demand, the projected demand, they would have to train 87 new pilots a day for the next 20 years. This is an insanely fast-growing industry, and many people don't even know that it's available to them. So what can we do? How can we present it to them? How can we solve that? That brings me to my Young Eagles Day. Young Eagles is a program run by the Experimental Aviation Association, which is an international nonprofit that started as a home builders club. It was people who were interested in building planes, working on planes, and it grew from there. And now they host events, massive air shows, they do fly-ins like this one, and they do a lot with youth and outreach. So to be a Young Eagle, you have to be between 7 and 17 years old. And all you have to do is reach out to an EAA chapter or attend an event like this. You get a half-hour discovery flight, and at the end you get a whole host of free stuff. You get free access to all the STEM museums in the country. You get a free ground school, free first flight lesson. They'll reimburse you for all the tests you have to take to get your pilot's license. And among hundreds of other things, there's a magazine. It's endless amounts of free stuff. So my event was at Concord the first Saturday in May, and we had 8 pilots, which a dorky video of us waiting, because they were like, we want to be part of the presentation, so you get that. And we took 17 kids flying. All of those kids came in and were kind of timid, and by the end they were absolutely ecstatic about it. They all got their magazine and their comic book and their little wooden glider thing, and we had pens with wings, and they all thought that was the coolest thing ever. They were like $4 on Amazon. But there were 2 kids that really stood out to me, and that was Nina and Charlie. Nina, she was 8. She was completely terrified when she came in. Her mom had to basically drag her up to the check-in desk. She wouldn't look anyone in the eye. And her mom, when we were checking her in, made a comment about, she's scared of the pilots. They're really scary. And yeah, there were 8 of them, and they were all between 30 and 90, and they were all men. A lot of them were bigger. They're kind of frightening. I was sitting down, I was checking in, I'm a teenage girl, not the most intimidating. When her mom said, oh, I think she's afraid of the pilots, one of the pilots leaned over, his name's Ken, and he said, well, she's a pilot too. And from that moment on, everything changed. Nina would not shut up. She thought it was the coolest thing ever. All she wanted to do was talk to me. And I finally said, look, you want to go in a plane? Go with Ken, he's great. And she did. And she had a blast. She came back and she hung out for 2 hours after her flight, just hanging out in the terminal building, making little gliders. She saw it. She saw the possibilities. She didn't know that that was a thing. And then just by me existing in her little world, I completely changed her opinion on what pilots are. The other one, slightly different scenario, Charlie. He came in completely ecstatic. All he wanted to do was get in a plane. His dad kept talking about airline pilots. Maybe this is his future. Now, he went with Richard. Richard is a great guy. He has an RV-8, which is a home-built aircraft. It's what's called a kit plane. So he basically bought the kit. It comes with all the parts and all the instructions, and then he built this plane, and you can customize it. It's sort of like IKEA furniture, but slightly more complicated. And he is very passionate about home-built aircraft. So, of course, when he took Charlie, he explained what the plane was and how it worked. And when Charlie got back, all he wanted to do was build planes. He had completely changed his mind. Airline pilots were lame. He wanted to build airplanes. There was nothing better. He took like 10 of our little glider things and just was putting them together one after another. I mean, it's 2 pieces. It takes like 2 seconds, and he was just so excited. The next step was he was going to get an RV-8 and build it himself. he wouldn't let his dad leave until he had signed him up for the next Young Eagles Day, which was the next Saturday in Keene. And they lived in Massachusetts, so his dad was going to drive him all the way back up, and he made Rich pinky promise him that he would bring the RV. He was so excited. So, why did I tell you about them? Those kids, they walked in, maybe excited to fly a plane, probably just wanted to go in an airplane. They didn't necessarily have a big, drawn-out future in mind. Many of them were brought in by their parents. They weren't really that excited about it. But when they left, they were excited about it. They saw the possibilities. They saw the future there. They saw what they could do. They saw that anyone could fly, and there was a whole world of opportunity out there. So will all of them go and get their pilot's license or learn to fly a plane? Probably not, but do they at least know it's there now? Yeah. Seeing is believing, and they saw it. So what's going to stop them now? Thank you. Question? Oh.
Do you plan on becoming like an actual pilot?
I am an actual pilot. Sorry, I love saying that to people. No, I do not want to be an airline pilot. I just like fun. I'd love to be a flight instructor at some point.
You just love airplanes?
But yeah, I just like airplanes. I think if I flew for work, it would take the fun out of it for me, personally. Sure.
Is there airline are plane simulators? You don't pay for the fuel and all of that as possibly a cost-cutting measure?
I know the Nashua airport has some Redbird simulators, but it's still like $100 an hour. It's ridiculously expensive. But there's a lot of programs that you can get to make it cheaper. Like I know Stowe, Massachusetts, they have a program where if you volunteer for 5 hours, then you get a free flight. So if you like help out around the airport, so it can be, it's not easy, but you can make it work. That's right.
When I grow up, my dad wants me to be an airline pilot for my pilot's license. But he tells me, like, every 2 months, still, even though I have a career, that, like, you can get, to go to flight school, you can essentially get that paid for because there's such a need for commercial airline pilots. Is that?
Yeah, a lot of the airlines, they have their own internal schools. So you basically, it's like the military. You sign a contract, they run all your training, and then you are with them for 10 years or 20 years or whatever.
Do you need to have a pilot's license to sign up for that?
No, you can just sign up. It's a lot. I mean, because most airline pilots are between 35 and 55 when they enter the job force, and there's a forced retirement at 65. So they really need people because they don't have them for that long. Yeah, what?
What did you pay for it?
Oh, Home Depot, for sure. You didn't pay for it. You didn't give me any money.
Hey, more saving, we're doing.